I just wanted people to be able to settle. The Minister's settled. Everyone's ready. I call upon Tim Farron to move the motion.
Your guidance this afternoon, and a great privilege also to have the opportunity to raise the issue of accessibility of radiotherapy on this the World Cancer Day. For my communities in Westmoreland, 3/4 of us live dangerously too far from radiotherapy treatment. It's been my privilege to drive a number of my constituents to the Rosemere Centre at Preston to get treatment over the years, and I'm always struck by the quality of the treatment, the warmth and professionalism of the staff, but also by the gruelling impact on my constituents on whom the daily lengthy journeys take a terrible toll.
On that point,
I will happily give way. Sure.
My honourable friend for giving way so early in his speech. He mentioned travel times. Certainly for my constituents in St Albans and Hertfordshire, the travel times to radiotherapy would be much reduced if the Mount Vernon Cancer Centre could proceed with being relocated to Watford General. And the only way for that to happen really is if they go ahead with the new hospital programme sooner than it's currently planned. Would he agree with me that by shortening that travel time, it would deliver a much better service for local residents?
Yes, and I think what I absolutely do agree with my honourable friend. Travel times, I think we will come on to in a moment, do have an impact on outcomes. In other words, whether people survive or not. Because there's an impact on the extent to which a person will be referred for treatment or not, depending on how close they are to the nearest site. And so what she says is absolutely right for her communities especially. For my constituents, the 2 to 3 hour, in some cases 4 hour, round trip to the excellent but distant Rosemere Cancer Unit at Preston is not just inconvenient, it is debilitating, it is cruel, and it means that many don't complete their treatment. Many choose not even to start that treatment, and some don't even get referred for radiotherapy in the first place because clinicians understandably conclude that the patient isn't strong enough to cope with the rigours of travelling such distances so frequently. So for us in Westmoreland, longer journeys mean shorter lives.
Will he give way?
Happy to give way.
I'm grateful to him for giving way, and I congratulate my honourable friend on securing such an important debate, especially on World Cancer Day. In my constituency of North Norfolk, Radiotherapy UK found that nobody can access radiotherapy treatment within 75 minutes by public transport. Does he agree with me that we need a two-pronged approach to tackle this? We need to fix our broken public transport infrastructure, but also make more services available closer to where people are, such as Cromer Hospital in my constituency?
He's absolutely correct, and I think that the National Radiotherapy Advisory Group back in the time of the last Labour government had a recommendation that it was bad practice for anybody to live beyond 45 minutes of a radiotherapy centre one way, so an hour and a half round trip. And yet so many, 7.5 million people, his constituents, my constituents, live beyond that. I will happily give way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you to my honourable friend for giving way. On that specific point, I don't want to try and show off who has the worst travel times for radiotherapy, but nobody in my constituency of Frimley, Somerset, who doesn't own a car lives within that recommended 45-minute NHS travel time. Would he agree with me, would the honourable member agree with me, that a reliable, quick and affordable public transport is really key to this, and that actually the recent increase in the bus fare cap hasn't helped with this situation?
Yes, I mean, almost all, by definition, of the radiotherapy deserts, if you like, those places which are beyond sensible and safe travelling times, are rural communities. And as a result, they have terrible public transport. And it's not just the cost. Obviously, the £3, the increase in the bus fare cap is hugely damaging. But actually, for many of our communities, hers and mine alike, you know, whatever the bus cap, it almost doesn't matter. There's no actual bus to spend the fare on. You're kind of stuffed, really. And people obviously have a huge an impact upon their outcomes, their cancer outcomes, which means whether they survive or not, as a result of that. So, yes, I'll happily give way.
Thank you. Could it be that the reason that radiotherapy is only used in 35% of cases rather than 50% of cases be that very reason, that local transport just doesn't exist to take people to have the treatments that they need?
I think she makes a very good point. There are a combination of reasons, and I'll come on to those in a moment, but undoubtedly, distance to treatment is the critical point that decides whether or not people actually access and are able to take advantage of what is life-saving and life-prolonging treatment. I feel that my honourable friend has got a point coming on.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, Sir John, can I commend the Honourable Gentleman for Westmoreland and Lonsdale for his championship of this issue all the years that I've known him in this House. He deserves credit for it. He's got a debate in this hall today, and we'll obviously look to the Minister for a response. But does he agree it's greater than that? It's about recruitment. Training and retention of the clinical oncologists needed, with only 7 in 10 training places were filled in 2024. So does the Honourable Member not agree there is a way forward, that bursaries with students could begin to fill the training needs in the long term, and allowing students to understand that they won't live under the burden of student debt if they pick the career for life? In other words, help them with a bursary and you have them forever.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Honourable Member. I mean, there are many people watching this debate here today physically in the gallery and indeed on television outside who are part of that outstanding workforce, and we're massively grateful to them. What a career to be in a position where you're saving lives every day. And alleviating pain, a wonderful thing, and yet there aren't enough of them. And we are in a situation where absolutely workforce is part of the solution, as well as the challenge, the problem that we face. So for us in Westmoreland, as I say, longer journeys mean shorter lives. The answer is clear for us in Westmoreland, that is to build a satellite radiotherapy unit at the Westmoreland General Hospital in Kendal as part of the Rosemere unit, following the model of the many excellent satellite units around the UK. The number of cancer patients travelling from South Cumbria each year for radiotherapy provides demand for at least one linear accelerator at the Westmoreland General Hospital, and if the experience of other new satellite centres around the country is replicated, such as the new Hereford site, which is a satellite of Cheltenham, if that was to be replicated, that satellite centre will attract at least 20% more patients than existing demand, simply because people who wouldn't have had radiotherapy treatment at all beforehand will now be able to access it because it is simply closer to them. That this satellite unit in Kendal hasn't already happened is an indictment on the lack of responsiveness, the obvious need from the NHS, from NHS England, and a lack of concern for cancer patients and their families who live in rural communities. I would happily give way.
For giving way, and I also commend his advocacy on this subject over a long period of time. The satellite centres are one thing. Obviously, I'm representing Northern Ireland today in my constituency of Lagan Valley. I also note there are people in the gallery involved in the All-Ireland Cancer Research Institute. Would you agree with me that actually geography is important and that actually cancer knows no boundaries, so our efforts to tackle it also should have no boundaries?
My honourable friend makes absolutely wonderful points, and it's absolutely right. In every corner of the United Kingdom, we need to be making sure we have the staffing, the kit, and the level of technology to meet need close enough to where people live for people to be kept safe and to be treated in a way which is convenient. So in Westmoreland, we successfully campaigned to bring chemotherapy to Kendal, to bring greater amounts of surgery to Kendal, to bring a new diagnostic hub to Kendal. All of this is welcome, and all of this has saved lives, and I'm unbelievably grateful to all of those in our communities who campaigned alongside us, and to the wonderful NHS professionals who deliver and run those services. But the failure of successive governments, including the one that I was a part of, and of NHS management to take the people of Westmoreland out of the radiotherapy desert is utterly inexcusable, given the multiple opportunities to do so over the last 30 or so years. So my first ask of the Minister, then, is that he takes a personal interest in the call for a satellite radiotherapy unit at the Westmoreland General Hospital in Kendal, and that he will meet with me, oncologists, commissioners and patients to kickstart that bid.
Will my honourable friend give way?
Go on, yes.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Does my honourable friend agree with me that we must also do more to ensure local groups providing clinical and non-clinical support for radiotherapy patients after treatment, such as Macmillan Radiotherapy Late Effects Service and the Cancer Connect group in my constituency of Yeovil?
Yeah, he makes a great point, and he does a great service to his community by standing up for those groups who support people after cancer and their families as well, and I know that personally in my own family, so I congratulate him on making a really important point. So, my second ask, and the Minister should be delighted to hear I've only got the two. And it is that he separately meets with the all-party parliamentary group on radiotherapy and the leading fantastic clinicians who support us to look at how the government and NHS England can turn the tide on radiotherapy nationwide, because the problems of access do not just affect Westmoreland, they affect the whole country. Now, while in Westmoreland our issue is unacceptable distance from services, the problem across the country is that we A, lack sufficient capacity, B, lack up-to-date technology, and C, lack an effective workforce plan. Britain is behind our neighbours on the number of radiotherapy machines that we have, and we are behind our neighbours when it comes to how advanced that machinery is. In France, for example, there are twice as many linear accelerators per head of population as we have in the United Kingdom. Across the OECD, roughly 9% of cancer budgets are spent on radiotherapy. In the UK, we spend a paltry 5%. 1 in 2 of us will have cancer at some point in our lives, and 1 in 2 people with cancer should have radiotherapy. To be precise, 53% of us should. Yet, only 35% of cancer patients in the UK had radiotherapy as their primary treatment. In fact, the regional variation in access to radiotherapy ranges from the lowest, only 29.8%, by the way, that is in my constituency, up to 50%. And there are shocking variations based on tumour type too. Only 11% of lung cancer patients in some regions received radiotherapy compared to 43% in other regions. Only 18% of rectal cancer patients receive radiotherapy in some areas compared to 62% in others. People's chances of surviving should not depend on their postcode. Inadequate and inequitable radiotherapy capacity is costing lives. Over the past decade, more than 500,000 patients have waited for more than 2 months for their first cancer treatment. And yet, the chilling reality is that for every 4 weeks of delay in treatment, we have a 10% reduction of our chances of surviving. The Royal College of Radiologists remind us that in 2024, only 38% of patients starting radiotherapy did so within 2 months of an urgent referral for cancer. The national target is 85%. Now, if you compare that to other forms of cancer treatment, 68% of patients had surgery for their cancer in that time, and 64% started chemotherapy within that 2 months. Now, that means that over 10,000 patients requiring radiotherapy received their treatment after the recommended time frame. In 2023, 92% of cancer centres reported delays in patients starting radiotherapy. This is one of the main reasons the UK is near the bottom of the OECD cancer outcome rankings, which is a sanitised way of saying that people with cancer in Britain are more likely to die sooner than in other equivalent countries. So longer journeys means shorter lives, and longer waiting times also means shorter lives. And if we cannot... Yes, I'd happily give way.
Thank you, Sir John Hayes, for your chairmanship today. In Northern Ireland, 1 in 2 people who need radiotherapy actually do not get it at an early stage. Would the member agree with me that a strong focus is needed on awareness and early diagnosis?
Yes, I mean, I think moving ahead with early diagnosis, he makes a really good point, by the way, and early diagnosis is vital, and we're getting a bit better at that. But what a tragedy if we diagnose people and then don't treat them early enough to actually cure them. And so, yes, those things are vitally important in the round. He makes a really good point on behalf of his communities. If we cannot, Sir John, cope with treating the numbers of cancer patients we are seeing now, how are we going to deal with the projected 30% increase in cancer cases by 2040? So, the good news, the very, very, very good news, is that it does not need to be this way. The upcoming cancer plan, which we heard an outline of today, is an opportunity to supercharge cancer services and transform a culture of normalising unacceptable delays into one that drives continuous cancer care improvements. However, without decisive and radical action and leadership, lives will continue to be lost needlessly. At the heart, I will happily give way, yeah.
Giving way, pleasure to serve under you, Sir John Hayes, and may I commend the right honourable member for raising this debate on this day. And I'm very struck by his comment that longer journeys mean shorter lives. Not that there is a competition between journeys, but of course, my constituents in the Hill and near the Western Isles face some of the longest journeys in Britain to get cancer treatment. Out with the constituency, and actually with long journeys within the constituency. Somebody from Barra, for example, faces a 3-day journey to Stornoway by boat, taxi, airplane, therapy and reverse journey over 3 days. Hopefully that can be changed by sending patients directly to Glasgow, or perhaps even better, by getting a PSO, a public service order, to restore flights between one end of the island and the other. But I commend the gentleman for his debate, and for that very telling comment that long journeys mean shorter lives.
I'm extraordinarily fond of his constituency, and he represents it well and makes very important points about the travel times. There are some parts of my constituency where you need a ferry to get from one place to another, but not quite so many as in his, and he makes really important points. At the heart of the radical life-saving transformation that we need to see through the cancer plan has to be the elevation of the unsung hero, the Cinderella of our cancer services, radiotherapy. Lord Darcy found that 30% of patients are waiting more than 31 days for radical radiotherapy. Yet as the incidence of cancer grows, the urgent need for quicker, more efficient treatments like radiotherapy is only increasing. As things stand, the replacement and updating of linear accelerators is left to the 52 separate cancer units in England, 52 separate procurement operations, 52 different finance officers trying to balance the books, 52 different heads of service, all trying to meet increasing demand, often without the time and space to look beyond the horizon. It is time then to centralise the commissioning of the technology to ensure constant focus on updating and expanding radiotherapy. This would immediately start saving lives everywhere. Radiotherapy UK estimate that simply replacing all of the out-of-date Linacs could free up 87,000 additional cancer appointments every single year. Modern radiotherapy, though, is quicker and more accurate than other treatments, and it is also by far the cheapest, Sir John, costing between £3,000 and £7,000 per patient, several times less expensive than equivalent cancer treatments. The government's £70 million commitment to radiotherapy services was absolutely welcome. But in reality, as the Minister said earlier today in the statement, that money will only cover the cost of about 26 new Linac machines, which is actually fewer than half of the machines that are currently operating but out of date and beyond their sell-by. Erratic, one-off rounds of funding do not address the need for a sustainable rolling programme of machine replacement to enable planning, support procurement and improve access for patients. Even the new machines are often old technology. What a terrible, terrible waste. In my years campaigning on this matter, I have found that radiotherapy lacks funding, lacks prominence, and Britain therefore lags behind our neighbours, and our people tragically die when they did not need to. All because of a lack of leadership and drive from the centre. On more than one occasion, I've almost visibly seen the penny drop in the faces of ministers of all parties when it comes to our failure on radiotherapy. And then, every time so far, I see that zeal founder on the rocks of bureaucratic sluggishness, indifference and resistance to change within the NHS. The Minister and the Secretary of State will have the enthusiastic and active support of the all-party parliamentary group on radiotherapy and of the army of outstanding clinicians out there saving lives if they show the leadership that we desperately, desperately need. Professor Mike Richards is a name many people remember. He was the cancer czar under the last Labour government in the early noughties. He did great work. His achievements were tangible. So, if the government will forgive me using shorthand here, basically, we need a Mike Richards for radiotherapy, and we need them like yesterday. Failing that, tomorrow morning would just about do. Because every day we delay, my constituents and yours, Sir John, and the ministers and all of ours are dying unnecessarily. And we need new technology as we plan treatments too. £15.5 million was announced last May for AI technology, which would save clinicians time and reduce waiting lists for radiotherapy. But we have heard from cancer units around the country that this funding may be withdrawn or diverted. Now, that would be a hammer blow to trusts in the face of the ongoing workforce crisis. So I wonder, would the Minister take the chance today, in his remarks, to reassure our cancer units and confirm that this funding will go, as promised, in full to radiotherapy departments? I hope the Minister will also act swiftly to tackle the perversities of the tariff payments for radiotherapy, which effectively often punish trusts for treating cancer patients in the most effective and modern ways. So I ask the Minister to guarantee today that radiotherapy is at the centre of the NHS 10-year plan and cancer plan, and that the plan will be led by people empowered and determined to deliver it. The technology is vital, but the people matter just as much. The specialist and highly skilled radiotherapy workforce in the UK numbers only 6,400 people. Yet the survey conducted by Radiotherapy UK shows that 1 in 5 cancer doctors may leave the profession in the next 5 years. We have a 15% shortage in clinical oncologists, set to rise to 21% by the end of this Parliament, and 30% of oncologist training posts were vacant last year. On top of that, 50% of clinical technologists are over 50 years old, and 84% of heads of cancer services told us that they were concerned that workforce shortages affected the quality of care of patients. So I asked the Minister to agree that the 10-year cancer plan will include a renewed investment in workforce and infrastructure. A 10-year vision, by the way, already exists, Sir John, drawn up by the experts via Radiotherapy UK, and I simply urge the Minister to consider their findings and borrow their proposals detailed by leading oncologists and cancer experts. So today, I've asked for 2 separate meetings, one relating to the need for a satellite radiotherapy unit at Kendal, and one for him to have a first meeting with the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Radiotherapy to look at the national picture, and I hope he will grant me both. The radiotherapy lobby is tiny. 6,400 dedicated professionals within our health service, a compact but awesome group of charities and volunteers, a handful of companies building the technology, and many of them based here in the United Kingdom, England's Captain Fantastic Brian Robson, and a small band of MPs from all parties seeking to be a voice not just for the radiotherapy sector but for the thousands and thousands of people living with cancer in our country who deserve the best treatment that we can give them. But the UK has, for the last generation or more, let those people down, so often with tragic consequences. Yet radiotherapy is the cost-effective, easily deliverable technology that will save lives in every community of this country. We are way behind where we need to be, and yet it will be so easy, with the right leadership from ministers, to catch up with and go beyond our neighbours. Cancer no longer needs to be seen as a death sentence, but as a disease that can be treated and cured. But we will not do that if we have systems and practices to prevent us from deploying the best treatments available. Minister, please save lives and become our radiotherapy champion.
I remind members to bob if they wish to be called. It's a short debate, and I'm intending to call the wind-up speakers, the front bench speakers, at 5:08. The question is that this House has considered the accessibility of radiotherapy, and I see Clive Jones.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Sir John. Thank you very much for calling me, and I thank my honourable friend, the member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, for securing this debate, and I also thank him for his dedication on this issue. I have to declare an interest as a governor of the Royal Berkshire Hospital, and I have a family member who has shares in a medical company. So, John, radiotherapy access suffers from geographic constraints, an issue that cannot be solved until the significant workforce challenge is addressed alongside it. The Royal College of Radiologists state that in England, the NHS is facing a 30% shortfall in radiologists, and this is projected to rise to 40% by 2028. And yet, more than a fifth of NHS trusts have implemented recruitment freezes. Shortfalls in recruitment mean that consultants retire earlier, faced with burnout and impossible workloads, which is made especially clear as the average age of retirement is just 54. The Royal College of Radiologists have highlighted the absurd situation in which newly trained consultants may struggle to find jobs, forcing invaluable radiologists and oncologists to go for locum jobs, move abroad, or leave the healthcare sector altogether, at a time when their skills are best placed in our NHS fixing our cancer care crisis, a crisis in which not a single integrated care board is currently meeting its cancer waiting time standards. The impact of the recruitment freezes are tangible for patients as well, and it is not just limited to radiotherapy. 80% of patient pathways in the NHS are reliant on radiology. Delays in scan reporting results in delayed treatment. Delayed treatment results in worse outcome. Worse outcomes may be the deciding factor in whether someone fails to recover. How will the government ensure that my constituents in Wokingham, when they visit the Royal Berkshire Hospital, have oncology and screening departments that are fully staffed? And can the Minister explain his understanding of the recruitment freezes taking place across NHS trusts? I'm aware that the Minister has a very, very busy diary. He told me so earlier on in the Commons chamber. I'm right to the end, yeah? Yep, certainly happy to.
I suspect it's going to be a little bit busier with the 2 requests from his honourable friend.
It is going to be a little bit busy, but I'm sure that your diary can actually cope with it. So will the Minister meet with me and representatives of the Royal College of Radiologists to discuss the government's plan for workforce reform? Thank you, Sir John.
I'm delighted to call the front bench spokesman early. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to go on at immense lengths, but I call, to start off with, the Liberal Democrat spokesman, Helen Morgan.
Well, thank you very much, Sir John. It's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair. I promise that I won't go on at great length, partly because my friend, the member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, has, well, he did go on at great length, but he has secured a really, really important debate for World Cancer Day, and it's an honour to be speaking for the Liberal Democrats at this debate, but also because he's outlined the issues very, very comprehensively, and I'm not sure I could really improve on what he's got to say. Can I welcome also the government's announcement earlier today on the National Cancer Strategy, and also highlight the excellent work done in this area by my other friend, the member for Wokingham, who has campaigned for a National Cancer Strategy as well. Now, cancer services in general have declined to an unacceptable level, I think everyone would agree, and I hope the government sticks to its word on addressing this and ensuring that everybody is able to access the care they need when they need it, and as my friend has pointed out so eloquently, where they need it. In the UK, over 100,000 cancer patients receive radiotherapy treatment each year from a specialist workforce of 6,400 professionals. Cancer for those people is one of the most difficult diseases. It's difficult for individuals and it's difficult for their families. And yet the number of patients who've waited over 4 months to receive cancer treatment has more than doubled since 2020. And like so many areas of NHS care, the time you have to wait and the quality of care that you receive depends hugely on where you happen to live. And this has to change. I hope the government makes this one of its urgent missions. People's chances of surviving shouldn't depend on their postcode. NHS data shows that the West Midlands had over 150,000 radiotherapy attendances in 2022, the most recent data we've got available. That's the highest of all regions. Yet hospitals like Shrewsbury and Telford in my constituency have had some of the worst waiting times. In September 2024, at the Shropshire Telford and Wrekin Trust, only half, just over half, of patients requiring radiotherapy met the 62-day treatment standard. The target for treatment is 85%. Now, it's important to acknowledge that at Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trust, that situation is improving, and I welcome that. And it's been impacted by the staff shortages that many members have outlined during the debate today. But the impact on people isn't just about numbers and statistics. It's about the impact on their lives. I've had cases from constituents who are undergoing cancer treatment who've waited a long time for scans. I think the member of Wokingham has pointed out the importance of scans. They haven't had the result of that scan until their next treatment was due. And that's really to do with staffing shortages. And it doesn't just mean about waiting times, as we've heard. Distances are really, really important as well, particularly when somebody is poorly and finding it difficult to travel a long way. Now, in Shropshire, we are served in Shrewsbury, so the distance issue is perhaps not as acute as it might be in other rural areas in the country, I am glad to say. But the public transport issue remains acute. Many people are relying on friends and family to drive them to appointments. There's no other reliable way of getting there, and a taxi simply is too expensive for them to consider. And for that reason, some of them won't be accessing the care that they need. Across the country, 3.4 million people live further than the target of 45 minutes from a radiotherapy centre. So it's really important that we address those radiotherapy deserts and ensure that people can access the care that they need. Now, in addition to the outdated sparse machines and low morale, we found that 65% felt that they didn't have enough machine capacity. This is 65% of staff. 93% felt that they didn't have enough workforce. So in addition to the distances, we must put an end to this problem of people being unable to be treated, not just because they live a long way from the equipment, because when the equipment is available, it's either outdated or there's nobody to staff it properly and interpret what needs to be done. So, in summary, I think, because I think the member for Westminster and Lonsdale has said all this before, the Liberal Democrats would boost cancer survival rates by introducing a guarantee that 100% of patients would start within 62 days of their urgent referral, start their treatment. We need to replace the ageing radiotherapy machines and increase their number so that no one should have to travel too far for treatment. We need to recruit the nurses, the cancer nurses and the specialist staff required to staff these radiotherapy machines. And we would like to see a Cancer Survival Act passed, requiring the government to coordinate and ensure funding for research into cancers with the lowest survival rates. So I hope the Minister will be making cancer a top priority for the new government and push to reinstate the UK as a global leader in cancer research and, most importantly, cancer outcomes. Now, I welcome the commitment that's already been made to replacing ancient machines and delivering new ones of £70 million, but I hope that the Minister will consider where that investment is distributed so that we're addressing this urgent problem of treatment deserts. I hope also that he will consider the point that has been made that this is a spend to save issue, that radiotherapy treatment is effective and it is cost effective, and it may be a very worthwhile investment from a financial perspective for the NHS to consider making. I also want him to commit to putting in a 10-year workforce plan for radiotherapy as part of the National Cancer Strategy that they have already committed to ensuring that people can get the care that they need when they need it with the appropriately qualified professionals they need to deliver it. And finally, address the problem of building space. A lot of our hospitals, as we know, are crumbling. Care needs to be delivered in an appropriate setting. My friend, the member for Wokingham, has outlined this on a number of occasions. So in conclusion, we welcome the government's steps so far. I would like to push them to go further. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. As you predicted, it was pointed and not too long. Thank you very much indeed. Now I call the Shadow Minister, Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Sir John, and it's a great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this afternoon. As we discuss the future of radiotherapy services, I think it's essential we acknowledge the vital role of our radiographers, the medical physicists and the oncologists, who play such an important part, along with all the nursing staff and others in the delivery of care. The professionals are the backbone of any successful radiotherapy service, and without them, progress is impossible. However, it is clear that governments have faced significant challenges in both staffing and infrastructure, and I'd like to take this opportunity to scrutinise the current state of radiotherapy services and the plans to address these concerns. The demand for radiotherapy has undoubtedly increased substantially in recent years and is driven by primarily one factor, our ageing population, and the fact that as we grow older, our chances of being diagnosed with cancer increase significantly. However, radiotherapy is and remains one of the most cost-effective treatments available within the NHS, and that fact was recognised by previous governments, and between 2016 and 2021, 162 million was invested to enable the replacement of upgrade of approximately 100 radiotherapy machines. But since April 22, the responsibility for investing in new machines has sat with the local integrated care boards in England, supported by the spending review in 2021, which set aside money for that. As honourable and right members have said this afternoon, to keep up with the increasing demand and the need for cutting-edge care, there must be significant sustained investment in radiotherapy services. It's one of the most technologically advanced areas of healthcare, so it is particularly incumbent we keep up with the latest scientific developments. The government has announced £70 million of funding for new radiotherapy machines, which is welcome, but Radiotherapy UK, I know, has said this is not enough, and has suggested the government invest 5 times that amount to update the machines that are currently out of date. On this point, I would appreciate some clarification. The government has consistently stated in written answers that funding for new radiotherapy machines will be allocated by ICBs using criteria set by NHS England. How will the government monitor the upgrading of the machines across the different ICB areas to ensure that this takes place and prevent the postcode lottery that members have described? Furthermore, NHS England has confirmed it will give high-performing local systems greater freedom around capital spending. Will such freedoms include the capital retention that can be used to invest in new radiotherapy equipment? One of the most pressing issues is the need for a comprehensive long-term strategic plan for radiotherapy from this government, because the absence of such a plan hinders the ability to think strategically about the future of cancer care and to make the necessary investments to meet growing demand. I'm glad that today, on World Cancer Day, the government has committed that it will produce a new cancer plan, and we're told that that will include future details on how outcomes for cancer patients, including on waiting times, will be improved. Can the Minister indicate whether it will provide specifics on the rollout of radiotherapy machines in the short, medium and long term? In response to a written question last month, the Minister clarified that NHS England doesn't hold any data on the effective use of radiotherapy machines relative to the number of doses they deliver, and that's something that's been raised by members as well. The newer machines will be able to deliver more doses more quickly. I'd be interested to know if there are any plans to collect such data within the department. Of course, any strategic plan should focus not just on the machines, but on the people who operate them, the radiotherapy workforce. What steps is the government taking to improve the recruitment and the retention of the radiotherapy workforce? In a written question, the Honourable Member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale asked the government about whether it had consulted or planned to consult with clinical experts, the radiotherapy industry, patients and charities on how best to allocate the funds announced in the budget for the new radiotherapy machines. The Minister responded by saying the department had no plans to consult on this matter and reiterated the funding would be allocated using NHS England criteria. Can the Minister answer, will his announcement today on a cancer strategy plan, or the plan to produce a cancer strategy, will that include radiotherapy, and will he commit to working with Radiotherapy UK and providers to improve access to radiotherapy treatment where it's currently lacking? The Honourable Member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale has made a very compelling case about long journeys and for a service within his constituency, and there will be others similarly affected. We know that earlier treatment also affects survival rate. I asked him a question in the chamber earlier about the main chamber earlier around 62-day target, which I didn't hear him answer. Could he confirm here that he intends to stick to the previous commitment by his Health Secretary to ensure that they've reached the 62-day target by the end of this Parliament? In addition to government investment, the private sector also plays a role in ensuring the future success of radiotherapy services. The NHS has signed a significant partnership agreement with the independent sector to increase capacity for diagnostic and elective procedures, which will help reduce waiting times. But it's not clear whether this agreement includes treatment equipment such as radiotherapy machines. Can the Minister confirm whether they will work with the independent sector to upgrade equipment such as radiotherapy machines? A partnership that includes capital investment in radiotherapy equipment could ease the burden on the NHS and speed up access to treatment for patients. In summary, Sir John, I know the Minister is hugely motivated to do all that he can to improve cancer care, as we all are. I think this debate should have helped him to give him some steer on how that can be achieved.
Thank you. Before I call the Minister, can I ask him to leave a few moments for Mr Farron to say a final word of wind-up, and he in turn to leave me a few moments to put the question. I call on the Minister, Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Public Health and Prevention, Andrew Gwynne.
Thank you very much, Sir John, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I want to start by thanking the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, for bringing this important debate to Parliament on World Cancer Day, and to the other members for the contributions that they made, the interventions that they made on this really important topic. I would, of course, be pleased to meet with the Honourable Member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale and his colleagues from the All-Party Parliamentary Group on radiotherapy to discuss these issues further. I suspect that my diary is going to get busier. I would be more than happy to meet with his honourable friend as well, and indeed ensure that we get this aspect of the National Cancer Plan absolutely right. And Sir John, to answer one of the questions put by the Shadow Minister, of course the National Cancer Plan will include radiotherapy. It would be odd if it didn't do, given the importance of radiotherapy going forwards. And yes, of course, I will work with Radiotherapy UK and others with an interest in this area. That's part of the reason why we've launched our call for evidence today, so that we can get the views and the opinions of as many people and as of many organisations as it's possible to do, so that we get this plan right. Because it doesn't just have to be fit for 2025, Sir John. It has to be fit for 2035 and the years in between as well. So there's a lot of work to be done. Now, we know that cancer patients are waiting too long for treatment. That's why we are taking immediate actions to kickstart recovery of the NHS with a commitment to cut waiting times, which will benefit all, including those with cancer. And of course, we are committed in our 10-year plan for the NHS to return our National Health Service to constitutional standards, and that includes on cancer too. Now, Sir John, by investing in our workforce, a point that has been made by several honourable members, and allocating £70 million for new radiotherapy machines, we will reduce cancer waiting times, and we will give more patients access to state-of-the-art treatments. Fixing the NHS also requires reform. This year we will publish the 10-year health plan to help build a health service fit for the future. And as I've already mentioned, we are today announcing the launch of a call for evidence for a dedicated national cancer plan. This plan is another step forwards towards unleashing our country's potential as a world leader in saving lives from this deadly disease. And I encourage everyone to have their say by responding to the National Cancer Plan's call for evidence. Now, Sir John, I wish to assure honourable members that it is the priority of this government to ensure radiotherapy is available quickly to those who need it. Radiotherapy is a crucial treatment for many cancer patients, as it can shrink tumours very effectively. And whilst the vast majority of the population are located within reasonable distance of where they would go for treatment, I am very aware that particularly in rural communities, that is not the case. And Sir John, I can give a family example of that, because my dad, who sadly died 2 years ago from a very rare and aggressive form of rectal cancer, he benefited from superb treatment from the Christie in Manchester, which is our local cancer hospital. And he had chemotherapy, he had immunotherapy, and he had radiotherapy. And that radiotherapy shrunk his tumours that almost certainly gave him 2 years of extra quality life with his family, with his great-grandson, and I will be forever grateful for him receiving that. But one day we took him to the Christie, and he got chatting to somebody who was also receiving radiotherapy. And it's pertinent to the honourable lady who leads on these matters for the Liberal Democrats, because this person was from Shropshire. And my dad is Salopian born. He was born in Shrewsbury. He was brought up in High Arkle before being dragged to Manchester in the 1950s when my granddad got a job as the chief accountant at Manchester Education Committee. And he got talking, and he was, "You're really from Shropshire and you're coming to Manchester for radiotherapy?" And it was the nearest place that had that treatment available at that time. And it really hit me then just how sporadic these things are and how some people have to travel, I think, unacceptable long distances. So we need to make sure that in our National Cancer Plan we look at the deserts and we look at the accessibility issues. I am aware, I will give way.
Job not at all well if I didn't pursue him. He very kindly earlier on talked about giving us the meeting with the all-party group to talk about the national picture. Just want to press him on our bid locally to tackle the problem he's just spoken about. So would he meet with me and local oncologists to talk about how we deliver a radiotherapy satellite centre in Kendal?
Well, I was just coming to that, Sir John, so he obviously started to read my notes from a distance, because I am aware that the Honourable Gentleman met with the previous government to discuss a possibility of having a satellite unit in his local area. The situation does remain the same now as it did then, that this is the responsibility of the Integrated Care Board. But look, if he thinks it would be helpful for us to have a meeting and to see if we can push the case, my door is open to that, because, you know, I absolutely recognise the preference that people in that part of Cumbria would have to have those services closer to where they live. And if we can impress that on his local ICB, let's see if we can make progress. The government aims to ensure that each treatment centre is accessible to the highest number of patients possible, as well as being easily reached by the staff who work there, because that's another consideration, that it's not just the patients, it's the staff that have to physically get to these units. So we recognise that for those in rural communities, machinery may not be available at their local hospital, meaning travel to specialist centres to receive the best possible care is the only option. Radiotherapy service provision is agreed by local systems, and each patient's care needs and treatment location are decided on a case-by-case basis and by their clinicians. We are giving greater flexibility and control to local systems, as they are best placed to understand and meet the needs of their communities. But driving forwards the National Cancer Plan, we have to really tackle this postcode lottery and the deserts head on. On workforce, Sir John, access is also about making sure we have the right workforce available to deliver the treatment in the right places and at the right time. That's why the number of training places has increased, and we are improving the quality of education for assistant practitioners, diagnostics and for therapeutic radiographers. NHS England is also working to improve the retention of radiographers and radiologists through initiatives such as increasing investment in career development. By ensuring our workforce feels supported, we put ourselves in a better position to deliver the care that people need. Turning to investment in machines, I would agree with the Honourable Gentleman that we should be ambitious in our plans to ensure patients are treated as quickly as possible. Lord Darcy's report highlighted the scale of the challenge we face. Under the previous government, waiting times for treatment increased, and more than 30% of patients waited longer than 31 days for radical radiotherapy. In response to Lord Darcy's findings, we have taken urgent action to get the NHS back on its feet again. At the recent budget, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, supported our commitment to end the backlogs by announcing £70 million worth of investment in new radiotherapy machines in 2025-2026. Replacing older radiotherapy machines with newer, more efficient and more technically advanced ones will ensure patients can be seen more quickly. By doing so, we will improve access and speed up cancer treatment. Making more advanced machines available means patients will have fewer trips to receive their treatment. Now, honourable members may be aware that NHS England has now allocated funding to trusts across the country to purchase the new radiotherapy machines with this £70 million of investment. NHS England invited trusts to express interest in receiving funding to purchase a new machine. Allocation criteria focused on the age of the machine being replaced, the proportion of older machines in use within the trust, and the trust's performance on radiotherapy. We expect to fund at least 27 new machines, which should be available to treat patients by spring 2026. Sir John, these steps will ensure we can improve cancer waiting times as soon as possible, helping us put an end to the last government's neglect and underinvestment. And I want to reassure him and other members that we will continue to make the case for additional funding so that we can continue to upgrade machines and we can continue to push the advances of latest technological developments for the benefit of patients with cancer. Turning to the National Cancer Plan, beyond immediate actions, we know that bold reform is required to rise to the growing challenge that cancers of all types represent. Lord Darcy found that cancer survival in this country is worse than in comparable countries, with improvements slowing greatly during the 2010s. To help us to develop more targeted actions, my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, has announced the development of a national cancer plan, the subject of the statement I gave in the House just a few hours ago. The overarching aim of this plan is to reduce lives lost to cancer. It will detail how we will improve outcomes for cancer patients, ensuring patients have access to the most effective treatments and technology, including radiotherapy. Today, we've launched our National Cancer Plan Call for Evidence. We welcome views from all honourable and right honourable members, as well as from clinicians, patients and their families. I think it's critical, Sir John, that we get the views of the people who have lived experience of accessing cancer care. Charities, researchers, members of the public, and of course, the excellent APPGs champion cancer treatment and outcomes in this House. So, in closing, I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman, the member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, once again, for bringing this crucially important matter to the House. I thank honourable members whose contributions in the spirit of this year's World Cancer Day have put places and people at the centre of care. And I'm pleased to assure the honourable members that have spoken today that we are undertaking both immediate actions and bold reforms to improve access to radiotherapy. There's a lot more we need to do, and we will do it in partnership. This work as part of our effort to rebuild the NHS and deliver world-class cancer services for everybody, something which will always be a top priority for this government, and it's personal for me. So let's go on and achieve it.
Thank you, Minister. The Right Honourable Tim Farron.
Thank you, Sir John. First of all, thank you to you for the oversight of this debate and keeping us in order. But thank you to everybody who has contributed, from the front benches, from colleagues, honourable friends from all sides of the House who have contributed so well to this debate, knowledgeably and with passion on behalf of their communities. I'm really grateful to all of you. But a special thank you to the Minister for his response and for agreeing to my two requests. That's great. I appreciate that very much indeed. I appreciated also the statement he made in the Chamber earlier on, in which he spoke very movingly of his own family experiences. And we share an experience. My mum passed away at a similar age also from ovarian cancer, and you begin to see the impact that cancer has on the lives of just about every single family. And so when we got a position where we could do something about it, what a privilege it is, and what an opportunity we absolutely must not miss. So I do want to encourage, since I've got the floor for a second or two, to encourage members who are not members of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Radiotherapy, please join up. We won't overburden you. But I have discovered over time that decisions are so often made in the interest of the people who are in the room. And so we need to be in the room. Chemotherapy is a really vital part of cancer treatment. And the pharmaceutical industry that goes with it has tons of resource to lobby us. And that's good, and they're entitled to do that. Radiotherapy is a very different industry. This is the lobby. And so we need to be in the room to make sure that we're equally heard and we are part of that armoury to tackle and defeat radiotherapy, defeat cancer and using radiotherapy. I do think leadership is key. Money is vital, but leadership is key. Having people who will be on it constantly within NHS England at the senior levels who want this to happen, who are dissatisfied with how things are and are hungry for change is essential. And with no disrespect meant to anybody, I don't see it at the moment. And I am encouraged by what the Minister says in terms of trying to instil that. Radiotherapy is non-invasive. It's increasingly targeted, increasingly accurate. In the time I've been involved in this area of campaigning, I've seen it exponentially increase in how targeted it is and therefore how strong the doses, so to speak, the fractions can be, therefore the damage you can do to a tumour and the lack of damage you do to the healthy tissue around it, which if he's trying to convince his right honourable friend the Chancellor to give us more money, it's so beneficial for the economy because people will go back to work healthy and earn money and pay taxes. My final point is this. So thanking him very much for the points he's responded to and to make again the case for satellite radiotherapy units around the country, not just in my patch. And this might be something that his civil servants might want to look into more deeply. Amongst the wonderful people I've met today was a young clinician, James, who works in a radiotherapy unit in London, but did work at Cheltenham, which then, of course, branched out to have a satellite at Hereford. And he was able to demonstrate and be able to vouch for the fact that at that new satellite unit, they ended up getting on for 25% more patients to that unit than they originally planned to, for one obvious reason, and that is people who would not have had radiotherapy at all were able to get it because it was closer to them. So the important thing to remember is that satellite units are not just about convenience. They're not even about convenience. They are about saving people's lives and returning them to normal life if we possibly can. So I really thank him for the attention he's given to this, and I thank everybody here today for taking part in it, not least yourself, Sir John.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered the accessibility of radiotherapy. As men of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting now stands adjourned.